Every now and then, a piece of gear comes out on the market and sort of flies under the radar. There's an initial hype around it, especially if it comes from a bigger or more prominent company. And then eventually that hype dies down and sometimes people just forget about it altogether. Now, this can be for good reason. Sometimes gear comes out on the market and it's just overhyped or underwhelming. It's just not that great. But occasionally you end up with something that really is a great piece of gear, and for whatever reason, nobody really talks about it. Not very many people know about it. So in today's episode of Gear Talk, I'm going to show you what I think is one of the best pedals around that nobody really seems to be talking about. Now, I remember a few years ago when this pedal came out, I didn't really get it. It was made by one of my favorite pedal manufacturers, and generally I like everything that they do. But when it first hit the market, I was kind of confused. It didn't really make sense to me. I didn't know who it was for or what it was supposed to do. In fact, I wasn't even really sure it was targeted at guitar players. But now, having owned one for almost a year, I can safely say that this is one of my favorite pieces of gear I've ever had, and I'm not ever going to let it go. This is the Strymon Deco. Video is in no way sponsored. Strymon's not paying for this. They're not telling me what to say. And in fact, they don't even know that I'm making this video. They did give me the Deco about a year ago, but other than that, they've had no hand in this video whatsoever. Okay, so what is the Deco and what does it do? Essentially, it's a tape machine. It's like having a reel-to-reel tape deck in a box on your pedal board or on your desk. Now, why would you want a tape machine on your board? First of all, there's the tape itself. When recording to tape, you get a natural compression, a natural warmth, and a natural sort of saturation that we find really pleasing as listeners. So part of the Deco's job is to emulate that natural tape saturation that you would get from recording to a tape machine. But there's more at play here than just tape saturation. See, tape machines and the audio engineers who ran them in the 40s and 50s are essentially the birth of a lot of modern effects that we use today as guitar players. Key among them is delay. That's right, the birth of delay started in the late 1940s with audio engineers stringing two reel-to-reel tape decks together. One would be recording while the other was playing back, essentially getting what we now call a slapback echo. From that era, we also got effects like flange, chorusing, double tracking, some stereo imaging stuff. I mean, there's so many things that we use today on a regular basis as guitar players that we can thank the brilliant engineers of the 40s, 50s, and 60s experimenting with their tape machines for. And the reality is, Strymon figured out a way to cram all that in the Deco. Now this is my Ampex ATR 700. It's a 2-track reel-to-reel deck. It's from the 1970s, and I picked this up a few years ago from a recording studio here in Atlanta when I was on a session there. At the time, I was looking for a reel-to-reel deck like this, and they had this one sitting around, and they actually gave it to me for free because they were just looking to get rid of it, which was quite the score. Now, the reason I wanted a reel-to-reel deck like this was as a mixing and recording tool. I wanted something that I could bounce drums to, or vocals, or an entire mix if I wanted to, print it to tape, and then bring it back into my DAW to get some real, natural tape compression and saturation. Now, in theory, that's a really cool idea, and there are plenty of producers and engineers and players out there that do that exact thing. But in reality, this machine has been way more trouble than it's worth. It's been in and out of the shop several times, and I've spent over $500 on it to get it working. And as you can tell, it's not quite there. Now, on the track at the beginning of the video, you might have seen this thing running in the background, and I have to admit that was a bit of a trick. I wanted you to think that I was tracking through the tape deck, but in reality, all the guitar parts, the bass, the synth, and even the drums were all tracked through the Deco. I set it up to essentially act as a tape machine. It was adding some saturation, some distortion. I used it to widen the stereo image on a few parts. I even used it as a tape echo and delay in a few parts. And that's primarily how I use the Deco, is a tape machine and a box. And you'll notice there's no Velcro on this pedal because it doesn't live on my board. I use it primarily as a mixing and recording tool. And it's really good at that. It's got stereo ins and outs. You can set it up to take instrument level or line level if you are using it to bounce through drums or any kind of line level signal from a DAW. You can throw it in the effects loop of an amplifier, essentially putting in a tape echo or tape machine in the effects loop of your amp. If you're a vocalist, you can send vocals through it and distort them, or get some slapback echo or some flanging or chorusing going on, or get some stereo imaging going on. But one of my favorite things to do with it on guitar is to use it as a double tracker. Now, if you're not familiar, double tracking is a recording technique that allows you to add width and weight to a certain part. I do this all the time when I'm tracking guitars. I'll play one part and then play the exact same part as close as I can to the original, but maybe with a different guitar or a different pickup or tweaking the amp slightly. And when you put this in the context of a mix, it adds so much weight to the guitar sound. One of my favorite things about the Deco is it allows you to do this live. So if you're on a gig, you can essentially set this up as another guitar player in a box, a double tracker, to add some more width and weight to your part. This is great for solos. It's great for melody lines or parts that you want to sort of stand out. And it's something that I don't think enough guitar players are aware of, that you can do this kind of thing live. Now, I will say this pedal is pretty expensive, and I think that's part of the reason more players don't use it. If you think about it, you have an overdrive pedal, a clean boost, a slight compressor, a very, very basic compressor. I don't know that I would call this a compressor pedal, but it does add some compression to your signal. And then the double tracker side gives you a chorus, a flanger, a slapback echo, a double tracker, and a full-on tape echo. When you combine that with the fact that this thing is a killer recording tool, especially for people that don't have access to a full-on 2-inch 24-track reel-to-reel deck, or better yet, 2 reel-to-reel decks to string together to do all the things this thing is capable of, it's surprising to me that more players don't have one of these on their board or in their home studio. Now, the Deco isn't perfect. There's a few things I wish you could do with it, namely presets. I wish you could save and access presets on the pedal itself. That would be fantastic. Also, whenever you cram this many features into one pedal, you start to get into the whole jack of all trades, master of none category. And you do kind of find that here a little bit with the Deco. It's not a fully featured overdrive or distortion. It's not a full-on delay pedal with all those features. It's not a full-on chorus or flange or other modulation pedal with all those features. But I think this thing is truly unique in the space. I don't see a lot of other pieces of gear on the market like this, and trying to do what this thing is really good at, which is essentially a killer studio and recording tool for your pedal board or your desktop. And it's worth mentioning, at $300 you could pick up some great plugins to use in your DAW of choice that do the tape emulation, saturation, delay, flanging, chorus thing really well. But I feel like I am similar to most guitar players and musicians out there when I say I like having something I can touch. It's a tactile thing. I like having it on my desktop or on my board with knobs to turn and switches to flip. It does something to make the experience more enjoyable, more inspiring, and I think that's the best way I can describe this pedal and why I love it so much. Personally, I find it really inspiring to use. It does things that none of my other pedals do, at least easily, and it opens up new ideas and new ways of working that I wouldn't have been able to do without this thing on my desk. So with that, I think this is one of the best pedals that nobody's talking about. I think this is a total sleeper piece of gear. So what else do you think is out there that's really great that not a lot of people know about or are talking about? What's your favorite sleeper gear? Let me know in the comments section down below. I had a lot of fun making this video, and quite frankly, I'd like to do some more on this subject. Specifically, sleeper guitars, sleeper amps, basically anything that's really good that not a lot of people know about. Let me know in the comments down below. If you want more information on the Deco and where you can pick one up for yourself, I'll have some links in the description box down below. Some of those will be affiliate links, so if you click through and buy something through that link, I earn a small commission, which really helps the channel out and helps me out making these videos. Also, I'm less than 1 week away from releasing my first video course. The tone course, Fundamentals of Tone, will be available this time next week. So if you're watching this sometime in the future and you want more information on that, it's linked in the description box down below, as well as all the other links that you can click to support the channel more directly. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe down below, click the bell icon to be notified when I'm going live and posting new videos, and be sure to follow me on Instagram at Rhett Shull. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and remember, there is no plan B.